Hey, welcome folks. Mil-Spec Ops Monkey here. It's going to be June 2nd, 2021, and it's about 9:30 in the morning. Now, I recorded a sitrep yesterday, and I had a lot of technical issues. And so rather than push that out there, I decided this morning I'm just going to re-record it and walk you through stuff, streamline it a little bit, and then kind of go through some things that we discussed yesterday in terms of flashbang in his schedule. And then we're going to take a look at Tierra del Fuego. And I'm just going to show you guys how a lot of this disinformation is being pushed out there, okay? And so I just want to pull the thread on some of it and show you. Now, there's a scripture, Matthew 7:16, that says, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits." So one thing I would like to encourage all of you to do is pull the thread, go back and look at archives on folks that you follow and see if they've been right. If they're giving you dates and telling you things are going to happen and they don't happen, if they are pointing you to directions on things that are just completely false. One of the things that I found, there is a website, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to give them a dead cat bounce, but there's a particular website that's pushing out really bad false data about things to do with tribunals happening and locations and giving dates and telling you certain people have been already executed and just things of that nature. And honestly, as I pull the thread and go and look at these things, what I'm finding is just, it's all satire, okay? And so it's important for us to understand that. And the reason I say that is because as patriots, we are all clinging on to this little bit of hope, okay? And when you have people out there that are not giving true testimony and that are giving false stories, they're giving false hope out, okay? And we don't need that in our lives, okay? And so what I'm trying to do is clean up the mess every time somebody pushes something out there. Like, for example, the Davos Trump going to Switzerland thing, right? It takes time to go out and basically debunk it because you have to go research it and find that information. And so I would just encourage you guys to do the same and, go out there and look for yourselves, pull a thread on it. And, just careful who you follow. That's all I will say. All right. There's a lot of bad fruit out there. All right. So without further ado, get off my soapbox. Let's get into what we have today. Now, this is going to be, I'm going to blend this a little bit of today with a lot of yesterday's stuff. Okay. But again, I want to go into some details and just show you some of the airports, break down some of the things that were stated in this article, just so you guys can kind of take a step back and look at it as well with maybe a little bit of discernment. Okay. All right, so it looks like Night Watch is on ground, about to take off here in a minute. Now we're going to go look at Flashbang's schedule, and then we're going to look at what happened yesterday when he rolled out, and then we'll kind of button it up, okay? And then we're going to get over pretty quickly. We're going to look at Guantanamo Bay, because I will tell you, we've had a lot of movement at Guantanamo Bay in the last couple weeks. Now, there is somebody pushing this information about, the second week of June, things are going to kick in. I've heard that, the T-Man returns June 1 didn't happen. But what I do want to show you is, let's go take a snapshot back at the last 2 weeks, okay? Because that would get us from the end of May to now at Guantanamo Bay. And I want to show you there is certainly an uptick in aircraft activity. All right, so this is Flashbang's schedule from yesterday. Now, if you notice, he was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, okay, and he rolled out of there about 5:50. 090015, that one's actually leaving. You're going to see that roll out of Wichita. There it goes, okay. Now, after that departs and it gets a little ways ahead, you're going to notice our next no-call sign that comes out of Tulsa. The traffic will probably open up a little bit. You can see that's a helicopter that's doing a little recon around the area of his location. And then you'll see that one actually come out of Tulsa. Now, what you're going to see right here is 090016, and actually it didn't come out of Tulsa. Let me just click on that and see where this thing rolled out of. So just west of Tulsa, okay? And so That one rolls out. That's 00916. And let me see if I can find Air Force One, because Air Force One is actually already in the air, and we're not tracking it on here. So Air Force One departed. So you had 015 came out of Wichita, 016 it looks like it came out of west of Tulsa, and it was following the regular 747, which was all NA. Okay, so again, no call sign on any of these. You can see them roll out. Okay, that said, we'll get off of that because this is kind of time consuming watching this, and I don't think anybody really cares. But the whole point was just the fact that it is both NA again. So, all right, now let's get back over here to the volcanic activity. Now, as you remember, we've had a pretty big slam of solar wind events in the last couple weeks. And so whenever we get that, we get kind of a shaking on the planet, and we get a lot more earthquakes, stronger earthquakes, and then we start getting volcanic activity. And so we're seeing that. Now, if you notice, there's 5 volcanoes now active along this area right here. So this whole area is really, really picking up. Now, keep in mind, these are ash producers. These are the ones that are showing, as you can see, a little green underneath here, underneath Etna in Italy. That's just that's going to be ash. And then this one down here in Africa, Central Africa, is like pumping both ash and lava. That one's a doozy. Okay, and I want to say it's already made like 430,000 people actually move like their location because it was getting so bad. So that's a pretty big hazard for that area, especially given there's more strange weather patterns going on. Now, keep in mind, and I'll report that today in my Monkey Minute, but we got a snow event happening in Africa that is a record snow. They haven't had it in like so many years, and it's just out of the blue. Big snow event going on. You've had invasion of locusts on that continent that have devoured their crops, and now you got this volcano right in the middle of the country that is big. It's a massive volcano, and it's got a lot of ash and a lot of lava. And so the nighttime sky is lighting up bright red. So just something to keep an eye on. Now, some of our others, we still have one that's going on up here in Iceland, and there's actually 2 going off in Iceland, but both of those are lava producers. Therefore, they're not going to show up on this map. And then if you'll notice, this area got really quiet. We've had 2 volcanoes going back and forth over here in the Asian Pacific area along that ring of fire for months. And right now they're not showing, which is kind of interesting. So calm before the storm, maybe. We'll see what happens. But there's some big ones over here. All right. Okay, now let's get into Guantanamo Bay. This is what I want to talk about. This has been kind of an interesting 2 weeks. Now, this board will actually take us back. As you can see, there's this is 2 Fridays ago. This is last Friday, and then we're getting into this week now. And what you're going to find is we've got 5 aircraft that are those, they kind of fit in the mold of out of sequence aircraft for Guantanamo Bay. And so when I say out of sequence, they all fit kind of the same cookie cutter mold, okay? And so we had this one 2 weeks ago. That's N329MC, okay? Now that one rolled in from Lauderdale, all right? And it's a beautiful aircraft. And then this N631JS, which is Phenom 300 LLC. That one came in last Tuesday, and then it came back in on Friday. And then it came back in this Tuesday. And then we had our Maxwell bird that actually showed up again on Monday, which was, at 8 a.m. in the morning. So we've had 5 of these aircraft come in that all fit in this mold. Now, if you guys remember, this is the Maxwell bird, okay? And I'll give you kind of a quick snapshot of it. They all are similar in nature. They seat about the same amount. They all have about the same fuel range and capacity. And they're little high-speed dudes. Like, they don't take a lot of runway. Most of them are operating out of Fort Lauderdale. And so we are watching that location, actually eyes on it. And we're trying to catch to see what's going on in terms of boarding from that location, to see if we can actually catch them actually putting an HVT, or are these executives coming in? One I am noting is on that N631JS. there seems to be a Tuesday, Friday tempo, and I want to make sure that doesn't continue. If that does continue, it's the chances of them actually processing an HVT on the same days every week, not probably likely. So that takes it kind of out of sequence criteria, right? Becomes a sequence they're playing that's actually into the tempo and rhythm as the other birds are. Okay, and you never know. This could just be a backfill for an aircraft that's down, and they just need something to fill the position. But again, it doesn't hold a lot of people, so it's going to be a very small team going in and out. One or two passengers probably, and a security detail, along with pilots, or maybe one HVT and a couple security dudes. It just depends, really. And but they mix it up. Like I said, all of these aircraft, again, this one here, they all kind of fit that same mold. If you notice, little twin engine, beautiful planes, very nice. And you're not normally going to just put regular engineers or contractor guys on those aircraft. I don't care, program managers or whatever. Those are going to be either executives or they're going to be HVTs that are being moved. Okay, so that said, let's back on down. Let's get into, here's N631JS. Now, this one is one we're just looking at in and out of Guantanamo Bay. That's going to be your aircraft. So if you're in that area and you're looking, this thing's going to stand out. All right, that's a pretty unique paint job on that one, just like the Maxwell bird. Okay, now what we're trying to do now is establish this rhythm to see. Now it just bolted straight out of here and back. Now, one thing I will point out is this location here in the Bahamas, that kind of fits in that bucket of, if there were ever a black site, this would be a good fit. Okay, it not much there, but a very long runway and a very light populated area. Very nice international quick hop over. So if you had to give somebody a shakedown, remember, when you get international, the rules of engagement change, and so if they're bringing somebody out here to do something, that would kind of fit the mold. So okay, so there's that one. And then of course here's our Maxwell bird. We were just talking about that a minute ago. Looks like it's doing a quick hop today over to Boca Raton from Lauderdale. All right, but home operations. Now when you're looking at the flight activity on these, if you decide you want to go look at the board, what you want to look at is where it's originating from. So this one came out of Nashville, came into home base. Okay, so it originated here, went to Nashville, and then came back. More than likely that picked somebody up, brought them here to Lauderdale. Next day, it rolls out at 8:07 a.m. Guantanamo Bay on Monday. Then it came back, and then it went into some different, went up to St. Augustine, and then went into Wilmington, North Carolina, and then back to home base. And now today it's flying up to Boca. Okay, and so we just kind of keep an eye on it. Just like I said, this thing fits the mold very well. All right. So now let's break away from this piece, and we'll get back to it. But we're going to go and we'll get into the Tierra del Fuego in just a minute. Okay. So right now, what I want to go do is go look at the international movement in terms of immigrants, and we're going to take a closer look at Swift Air today. And one of the things you'll notice is this flight right here is coming out of Miami going into the Dominican Republic. Now, if you remember, we did have a regular flight that was daily going back and forth to there from Miami, but it was done by Caleta Air. Okay, this appears to be picking up that, because I'm looking for the Caleta Air flights. I'm not seeing as many as I normally see, and I certainly don't see the one going back and forth there. So either they're down for maintenance, and they've got a temporary, or they're getting ready to bump up and add more flights to that. But that one right there is what we're looking at. Okay. Now, if you get into the others, let's get in. These are all if you start looking at the locations. So this one, for example. That's the one we just talked about that I think is filling in for the Caleta bird. Now, this one is Phoenix over to El Paso. All right. So what it's doing is it's picking up immigrants in El Paso right on the border, and then its next leg this afternoon will come out of El Paso, and it'll roll somewhere else So what we're looking for are these aircraft that are coming in from the border towns and then flying people up into the, deeper into the U.S. Okay, and so that's really what we're seeing. Now the other thing too is I'm starting to notice they're actually flying down to Mexico and flying people from Mexico into further into the U.S. like San Antonio, and then they're putting them on other flights and flying them in. So they're not just picking up people at the border; they're actually giving them a free ride from Mexico into the U.S. All right. So, but that said, here are all the flights, and this is Swift Air. And if you'll notice, like this one's going from Greensboro. These are kind of coming back into sequence. They start out like this one, for example, from Phoenix. It's going to El Paso. It'll reset itself. They'll load up in El Paso, and then off they'll go. This one in San Antonio, it's coming from Alexandria because it just came from San Antonio, dropped a bunch of folks off in Alexandria, and now it's going back to pick up more folks. Okay, and this one right here, if you'll notice, let me just kind of click on that. We'll take a closer look at where this one's headed to. That one's headed down to Honduras from Alexandria. So it's going down here. It's going to pick up people in Honduras, and it's going to bring them back to the States. Okay, and it may go into San Antonio, and it's crazy. So that's your government at work. And the fact is, they're starting to bypass the borders because of the blockage that's getting there and the backup, and they're just going down VFR direct, picking them up and taking them straight into the U.S. over the borders and letting customs process them. And so they are bringing people in left, right, and center. I mean, you may as well have open borders at that point, right? And so that seems to be the direction they're heading. But here's Cleveland. Now, this is the area I know we've got operations going on. We've been tracking Atlas Air flights in and out from El Paso to Cleveland for a while. And this seems to just be part of the whole hub, okay? And so it even looks like they're bumping up into Canada, which is kind of crazy. So the again, we'll continue to watch it, but over the last couple of days, what we're seeing are flights that are coming in and out of right here at the border town, Brownsville, up here in El Paso, and then they've got them just going straight down into Mexico and down into Honduras and bringing people up into the U.S. Okay. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about Tierra del Fuego. Okay. Now, the other day I mentioned that there is one prison on that entire province. Okay, and it's this one, and it's just a lean-to. It's nothing. It's not very impressive. Okay, it's a very small. It doesn't hold a lot of people. It's got some guard towers. It almost looks like it's just not even really being fully used. But this thing's been around there for a little while. This is the police station right beside it. Okay, and you can see if right behind it, that little dome on the very top is a building behind it. That's actually your prison, and it's not, like I said, it's not a large prison. It's very very small, and it seems to be maybe a couple hundred people at best. Okay, and so I was talking about that, and the reason I brought that up, and as I go into the article, okay, and I'm not going to pull the article up. I'm just going to read some of the highlights or lowlights in the article. What you're going to find is they are talking about there is no prison, and that this location that they're using is basically they're using a hangar that's been converted to a courthouse, and that they're just processing people, and that they're not detaining them there. They're sending them elsewhere to be put into prison. Okay. Now, if you look at the distance, on a map from the U.S. all the way down to the tip of Argentina, or the very bottom, you're talking some serious hang time for flights. All right, so now let's kind of go into this whole Ushuaia thing, and we're going to look at Tierra del Fuego closer. And I want to show you some of the lowlights of this article, and then I'll just kind of walk you through why it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we showed you the prison. We talked about the fact that they state in the article that there is no prison down there for them. They're not detaining anybody. It is going to be strictly it's a capacity issue, that they don't have the capacity at other locations to actually hold these court-martial, these trials. And so they're having to take them out to other remote locations to do these trials, which I'm not really buying in on. But I understand it, taking them out to remote locations for prisons, that makes sense. But to fly somebody from North America or anywhere else around the country all the way down to the tip of Argentina just to do a trial, and not providing any type of location for detaining them, there's no prison. Where they put them in hotels, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And that is a long flight, a lot of fuel, and a lot of resources to do something like that. Okay. Now, when I show you too, this place has got a lot of people. It's got a pretty active tourism, and so you go popping somebody in here that people recognize, and you're not going to keep a lid on that. Okay. All right, let's go look at the maps real fast. So I want to look at the airports. Now, one of the things, actually, before I get into that, let me just show you. This was an article this is today's date. That's really has nothing to do. It has to do with some earthquakes that are down in Chile. But this is an older article that was published. And you can see on May 18, 2016, this one's actually written in October 19, 2016. It just talks about the Kenyan showing up down here in South America and was basically working to create or stand up some bases, to position the U.S. for what he called scientific research. Okay. Now, when I go and show you, there's actually, as you kind of read into this article, it talks about, how they don't really trust the U.S. and the fact that I don't know that we really got anything off the ground. Okay, they look at us as the aggressor. Okay, and so it talks about Trump in here and some of the things. And so again, if you want to go read it, it's it's an interesting article, but it's really doesn't have a lot of substance other than it's a thought, and it's the fact that the Kenyan came down there to stand up a base location, and with science in mind. Okay, now let's go look at this. If you look at this, is the base that they were talking about. All right, now I'm going to show you some pictures here as we look at this particular base. So we're going to bump in here now. This is one of the runways, and we'll get over that here right now. That's this runway right here, and that picture that I just showed you is taken from this roadside over here. There's like a reserve. Okay, now this is facing true north. All right, now you will notice there is a dark shadow around this base installation, which tells you that it has been updated or covered by somebody. All right, now but I will also tell you this is the airport. And if you get into the airport here, this is going to be that's the main airport on the island. This is the only hangar showing on the island right now. That's going to be either back shop or catering or something along those lines. Okay. But this is a very small remote airport. This runway is certainly big enough to house larger aircraft. Okay. Now, some of the articles talked about B-2s coming down there and some drones. I don't know why you would do that, because you'd really be taking them out of their coverage zones where they're really needed. And so, and also you have to have kind of a special hangar to go rolling B-2s into them. You're not going to leave that bad dude parked on a runway. Satellites will pick that thing up in a heartbeat, and also you just typically keep those undercover. This is some extreme weather here too. And it's not like a B-2 is an old B-52 and you just leave it out in the elements. This thing, they put them into these hangars and they're protected. Okay. And so that said, this is the other runway, which is also very long. Okay. Now I think that may have been the original and this is the new. But if you look at this land, if you just kind of see how it's all shaped, you have a lot of obstacles that would prevent you from just rolling in, without putting a lot of work into it. There's a lot of things that would prevent you from just rolling in and putting in giant sections of concrete and hangars. One, you've got water issues, right? So that's tied to this, okay? You've got hills, and so you'd have to move a lot of land. You'd have to reroute a lot of water. It would be a major, major construction deal. And even here, you're going to notice you got right on the water, this runway. But right here, this is a little hill, okay? And so if you're going to put anything in here, you got to basically remove a lot of dirt, okay? And so, and now here's the other piece to this. notice there is a large community right behind here. Okay, these are all residents and houses, and so if you're trying to keep things from prying eyes, this isn't very secure. Now, if that was a military base and you had gates up here like you do Guantanamo Bay and people can't get in to get eyes on, then that would make sense. But this is an open, like, people come in from this community into this area, and a couple of drones and you could get eyes on anything going on out here. So that doesn't really fit the build. Okay, it just doesn't make a lot of sense when you read the article and the fact that they are putting people there to avoid prying eyes. I will tell you, you can go to any military installation here in the United States and the media can't get on there, right? They're stopped at the gate, and you can have all kinds of stuff going on. Carswell is a beautiful one, right? You could bring people, land them, literally taxi over. You got a prison location right there. You could be holding trials in Carswell, and nobody would know any differently, okay? Locations out in West Texas, there are a ton of old military B-52 bases and things of that nature. B-1s fly in and out of there, and so Dias, you've got a bunch of different Air Force bases and Army air bases that you could do out in West Texas. That nobody gonna know anything's going on out there. Okay, so to think that they're gonna fly people down to the tip of the world to stand trial and then be sent back to a prison after they've been tried is hideous. Okay. Just makes no sense. And like I said, satire would be a very accurate description. Okay. All right. So now that said, this is going to be your runway. Okay. And this is your new runway. All right. And that is now up here. You'll see this thing. It says the prisoner's mural. That is an original prison that was put into play. This right here is a little naval installation. But that was an original prison. It got shut down in 1950. And actually converted into part of the Navy base. And you can see, we'll kind of zing in here a little bit, but this is going to be it. This is your naval base and stuff, and this is that's not a U.S. naval base. That is a Argentinian naval base. Okay, that's going to be your museum for the prison. Okay. All right. Now let me back up, and we're going to go look at the other location. Now this one is going to be the Rio Grande, which is going to be, let me button this up a little bit so we can see. Now, yesterday I was trying to show these things and I had pictures, and I finally figured out how to turn off the pictures. And so it was really clogging it up, making it hard to see. And that was part of the other reason. Now, this is the only hangar I see down here. Now, this base right here, or not base, this airport would fit better with the description of if you were to put in, a location, but you're not. Why would you go stand up a temporary location to do court-martials when you've got plenty of other locations? The other piece too, think about, you had Weinstein and Epstein both into the general population of prisons. Those were two very high-profile cases. You've got Maxwell supposedly in a general population prison up in New York, which we know that's not really accurate, but and the fact that now you're going to take those people who are probably the hinge pins to all of this, and even the same thing with the Nexium case, right? You had that Keith Rainier who was held in the general. Now he's also like Maxwell, he's being protected somewhere. But if you hold all those up in one location and you hold their trial and everything else, why would you take somebody and move them out to the tip of this? It just doesn't make any logical sense. Okay. So also note, this is an airport. All right. And, it does get aircraft, and it's not a lot of them. But there's a hangar. Okay. That's going to be a very small maintenance hangar. To give you kind of a sizing, that's going to be one of your little Lear jets. So you could probably get 2 or 3 Lears in there, if you towed them in and staggered them. You may be able to get a larger aircraft in, but you're not going to get a B-2, not with the wingspan. B-2 is not going to fit in there, not comfortably at least. And also, typically when you're putting a larger aircraft in, they have what they call a doghouse that goes on top of these hangars. And it's so that you can get the nose in and the wings in, but the tail doesn't fit in there. And so that tail will actually go right up by that doghouse, and then they'll close the hangar doors around it, and the tail sticks out. But that way they keep it, heated and things like that. These hangars are all going to be heated. There's no way that you're working in very extreme conditions that you would have a non-heated hangar for aircraft maintenance. That would be not good. It would take forever for things to cure, repairs to Okay, these are hotels over here, and I know that just because I was looking at the pictures that came with this. So this is a hotel right here. All right, and when I turn the pictures off, you can no longer see those hotels. But again, you could feasibly put some extra stuff out here. It holds a little bit of water, but that whole area is kind of swampy anyway. More water here, right? And but again, this is just going to be one of those deals. It's right next to this is all city, okay? A lot of people living in here. So prying eyes, you go rolling in with a Lady Gaga or somebody, and they're not gonna be able to hide that. It's just I mean, you could for a little while, but again, it's pointless, right? It doesn't make any sense to do that. So, okay. So that's going to be our other base location. That's over on the Rio Grande. That's closer to our police facility where, like I said, if you were going to do something, this would be a location and then you'd hold them in the police thing. But that police facility, as you guys remember, it's kind of a, it's a lean-to, man. It's not anything fancy. It looks like something you'd see, down in a port town, maybe Brownsville or something like that, or on the other side of the border. That's just really not, it's just looks like a small local resource. It's not very, very big, okay? Heck, I mean, the police location is bigger than the actual prison location. So, again, doesn't make a lot of sense, okay? All right, so we're going to continue. I will continue to delve into this topic just as I peel the onion a little bit more and just show you guys that it's all satire. It's just being made up. The problem that you run into is that there's people that read this as real and then they produce it as real and they come out and they talk about it as real. And so you're basing your whole, substance of your conversation and your topic off of bad data. And so, so you're just taking bad fruit and pushing bad fruit. And so, I really encourage everybody to just kind of pull the thread and don't take the bait. This is going to be, it's painful. I know, because we all have hope and we want to see something take place, but this is not it. Okay. And so when it does happen, we'll all know if it does happen. But in the meantime, we really don't want people just blindly following these folks, because you're just going to be really mad at the end of the day, right? And so, okay, so this is the Middle East. I wanted to pull this in because it looked pretty busy a little while ago, and you can see we've got quite a bit of activity going on here in the UAE and up here in Kuwait. And so if we kind of zoom in a little, looks like we've got same things we had yesterday. It's going to be C-17s. They look to be that one 24,000 feet, so he may be taken off. Can't tell because he's level at 24,000. This other C-17's at 26,000 feet, and he's rolling out. So then you got a C-130 and then an air refueler, which this air refueler hangs out in this general area on a regular basis. Now, if you notice that thing moved as soon as I clicked on it, it's because I had persistence on. All right, and that's gonna be one of your little C2. That's a Navy bird, and a little fighter action. Now let's get into UAE. Interesting enough, they actually are flying trainers, and you can see these are all trainers. Let me see who owns these trainers. It's UAE. So these are all pilots being trained. Glad to see them doing it over there and not in Pensacola, I'll be honest with you. Okay, got a little helo. That's also UAE. This is US C-17. Another C-17 looks to be Australian. And then we've got an air refueler here that's definitely, see, that's actually, come on, click on it. That's going to be U.S. air refueler. So it looks like we've got some fighters up in the general area as well. And let's get kind of north now over Israel. We've got a C-130. That is an Israeli C-130. And then we have what looks to be an air refueler coming out of the UK, out of Cyprus. Now, I do know there are a lot of eyes going on right now down here in the Bahamas because China has been pushing to stand up a port, and they are also trying to do a little land grab in Terceira, which is one of our prison watch locations. And that's right off the coast of Portugal, right? So if we back up and we go out here, it's out Portugal and Spain. It's out here, all right. So, but yeah, this is the Chinese are supposedly trying to do some land grab stuff out here as well, which would put them within striking range. You know, you put a fleet right there, and now you got a Chinese fleet, you know, hanging in the Atlantic, which is not good. So, okay, that's going to be it for today. Again, as I was telling you, I've been watching. I never see aircraft down on this end. I really don't. Now, commercial wise, they're down here, but military wise, I never see them down here. I look all the time. Every time I'm on here, I kind of have eyes looking down south, and so I don't think the whole Tierra del Fuego really fits. Again, if you look at the flight time from this down here at this southern tip all the way up just to get across the continent into the United States, you got to cover all of this plus all of that. That right there is that's like going top to bottom on the whole planet, right? So that is a very great distance. So that'd be a long flight, very long flight. I don't know that you could even do it in one go, but it just doesn't make sense to think that they're flying people down here and holding just for a trial and then pushing them back out. It's not a fit. So, all right, folks, that's going to be it. So listen, be safe out there. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear at Monkey Werx US.